Arai Guma by Marc Yamaguchi. Chapter 1. Rangers in the Night. Drip, drip, drip. The streets were slick, flowing with the first flush, and the news forecasted more to come. The heavy downpour of rain would release all kinds of smells that animate a neighborhood so that terrestrial creatures knew each other's business at once. A family of raccoons impatiently waited for a lull. Rory and Ralph puttered about, but Rachel, Ricky, and Ray stood still and focused intensely on the twilight of the overcast sky. They went outdoors no matter what. Their mother, Rose, had raised them with the saying, "You can't only walk on sunny days." Rain or shine, it was time for the games to begin. Even the laggards Rory and Ralph had to admit they looked forward to the start. Winners affectionately referred to their prizes as green beans, a family expression that represented the delight in something that suddenly revealed itself. Before the young brothers got a jump on the others, Rose reminded them to stay close together. When Rory was feeling uppity, he would reply sarcastically, "Green beans!" But this was just a cover for his recalcitrant nature. Rachel, Ricky, and Ray were oblivious to the murmurings taking place between their mother and the troublemakers. They were already factoring in ways to minimize the impact of this deadwood on the family. Still, they never defied their mother because mother knows best. Always take care of your own. Be loyal to the cause, but loyal to the family most of all. That rule was as golden as the fall sun that was now cutting a crisp skyline of the city crawling with commuters on their way home. Rachel suggested to Ray that she take the lead and leave Ricky to whip the youngins into shape. This would allow Ray to effectively gauge the strength of the opposition. Ricky was a disciplinarian of the family. They had never really known their father. No time to pout, thought Rachel. Rory and Ralph act spoiled for our whole lot. Rachel had more other important designs that required her concentration. The opposition could lay as many obstacles in their way as they liked, yet Rachel had a way of ripping through just about anything. Ricky rather enjoyed being the disciplinarian of the youngins, a role that was repugnant to Ray. Ricky liked the predictability of Rory and Ralph's antics, which made it easy for him to nip things in the bud. Ray, on the other hand, would rub his hands in delight at the thought of what he could steal from his opponents and how aggravated they would become. As per Ray's calculations, the object of the game was to get in and get out, so no one got caught. This was no simple feat. To look after himself was one thing, but to honor his promise to his mother was another. Rory and Ralph should have been cut loose long ago, and if it weren't for Ricky, these imps would have been roadkill by now. Rose fully understood this was a dangerous game, but she was neither slouch nor pushover. If you have ever seen a mother bear discipline her cubs, Rose could be 10 times as fierce. To begin with, her eyes would blaze with such fury they would animate the very night itself. The beautiful mascara lines that she was born with would crinkle into extreme, jagged edges that brought forth an element of matriarchal menace. She had managed to keep this family safe up until now, with common sense values and the occasional savage temper. A smorgasbord of riches awaited them. Rose reminded her kids to warm themselves up with a thorough stretch first. But as soon as they began to leave their home, Rory whined that his legs ached from the last family outing. Rose hissed, "Shut up!" The laws of nature were different with people around. Rose didn't care about being judged, and taught her family never to feel ashamed of who they were. Ricky looked directly at Rory and Ralph, but when Ralph dared question him with an adversarial, "What?" Ricky smiled condescendingly, like the Cheshire Cat, and then said, "Remember, mother knows best." Ray signaled to Rachel that the driveway across the street was perfectly cloistered for the heist they were about to pull off. Rachel stealthily moved to the head of their caravan to let their mom know they had zeroed in on target. Rachel was Mother's favorite. Never one to confuse business with pleasure, Rachel was an alpha who commanded respect even from the opposition. She had never lost a game, and tonight would be no different. Or so she thought. With Ray on the lookout, it was up to Ricky to get those weak links in the chain across the street safely and up the driveway to their destination. By this time, everyone was salivating over the spoils that infused the air with notes of roast chicken. Rory was so impulsive that when he jumped the queue, he forgot about how rough Ricky could be with discipline. Ricky had such a fire in his belly that he could have permanently maimed his little brother if it weren't for Rachel's one sharp screech to stop what he was doing immediately and come to her. Rachel was her mom's right hand, literally. Rose had her arm broken and it had never set right, so it was up to Rachel to run the family business. Rachel had to think quickly on her feet. 2 new bungee cords straddled the green wheelie's latch. Only Ricky had sharper teeth than her, so she called him over to cut the stretchies with her. Ray was at the ready, for as soon as they had finished, he would throw his weight in to tip the balance in their favor. Unfortunately, it is the curse of youth that danger may be seen head-on, but not from the periphery. With Rachel and Ray working on the green wheelie's lid, and with Rose and Ricky looking on, Ralph raced Rory back down the driveway out of boredom of having to wait around. Ralph was roly-poly, but had a leg up on his brother for once. Ralph would have won the race back to the safety of the tree-lined fence if it hadn't been for the contractor's pickup truck speeding by the moment he stepped out onto the road. Rachel and Ricky simultaneously snapped off the stretchies as Ralph met his fate under the pickup's front left tire. Rory ran back towards his family in such a fright he crashed full force into the green wheelie, knocking it over on its side. Stunned, Ray didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Rachel's steely personality prevented her from indulging in the black comedy. She had to take control of the situation as best she knew how. She tightly gripped the black turn handle of the green wheelie and threw her body weight into the turn. She rejoiced that it cooperated as it had done before at other sites. Rachel was still the undisputed champion of the turn. Her mom, Rose, gave the command to collect the spoils before the opposition discovered the breach in security. She snapped at Rory, who was still stunned, and he clumsily gathered what he could. These city rangers were solemn, finishing the victuals from the safety of their tree. Normally, the pack would have been savoring their victory by chit-chatting away. But with Ralph gone, the family suffered a terrible loss, and no one was pained more by it than Rose. The deluge that had begun shortly after the return at least kept the opposition's dogs off their trail. The rainfall was deafening as the eaves overflowed and downspouts rang out in a cacophony of steady noise. But Rachel thought she could hear her mother saying under her breath, "You can't only walk on sunny days."